All right, we're recording. Shalom to you all. First and foremost, we'll welcome in. I want to give all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Rakakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, GMS. As you can see one of them on the screen. And shalom to the Akims, the brothers and the Aquas, the few sisters. It's pushing his truth and sincerity. Okay? Keeping your hand on the plow, moving forward. This is the brother Yashar coming from the camp, Children of Light. As you can see on the screen. It's a great picture we got for the brothers. That's a very, very glorious picture right there. That was like last year, last Passover. Anyways, to get to the lesson, I'm coming back with the let me see. Coming back with a 13th entitlement of exposing the elitists. All right, part 2, which pretty much what I do is I just take different books, like the one I'm about to read into, Nature Knows No Color Line, going in on how blacks were always intermingled throughout different civilizations of time periods, from the medieval times, when Esau came back into power, because everything got whitewashed after that. They tell you that all the gladiators, they make them seem like they was white. They tell you only blacks that was alive was the Africans, I'm not gonna say that they say that the only blacks that was alive was Africans, because they knew that who the Israelites was. They've always known who we were. But their job in life is to keep us out of history books, because once our people know our history, that's when we get to come back into our power of who we are. That's why Hosea 4:6 simply says our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. That's why you hear the scripture so much, because that's the cold hard truth on our people. They don't know who they are because they were not taught. And the reason they weren't taught is because it is Esau's job and these other nations' job, okay, Ammon, Moab, Ishmael, Elam, to tell us that we ain't, to basically tell us anything but the truth. Tell us a lie. You African Americans, or you poor, you this, you that, you know what I'm saying? Scriptures say in Revelation 2:9, you're poor, but you're really rich, because of who you are. But anyways, so just going into different books. I started with, as you can see, hidden secrets of Freemasonry. Different movies, different TV shows I see, because a lot of these TV shows and movies that we see in different documentaries and such, they bring out a lot of meaning, through the pretty much through the plot, and we able to take that what they show and decipher it using the truth, and that's how you able to link this world and what is shown in this world and what's happening in this world, and showing the people how everything that's written or done in this world is already written aforetime in the Bible. It's called prophecy. So with that being said, I'm like I said, it's a 13th installment, and this one is going to be going in on blacks in early Europe, upper class blacks in early Europe, okay? The bloodshed between Edomites based on false religion, and how Negroes became favorites in the medieval European royal families. All right, that's gonna be the the subtitles of this lesson. So first, let's see here. Let me go to the book, and of course, brothers, I can't pull the book up on the screen. That's how it's to buy the digital copy, but I don't need to do that because I got the physical copy. So the water to the elder, or the camp y'all can for, being just passing this down on to me, and this and many other books, because this is where that worldly knowledge comes in at. All right, you can't always Google everything. The digital age, it's the information wars. They ain't always gonna tell you, what's right and give you the facts. Even AI, sometimes you have to correct AI, and AI will even apologize to you. You're right. I'm sorry. I apologize. What you said was right, and and so like I said, man, you just have to know what the facts are, man. But anyways, when you got somebody giving you the facts, you gotta hold on to that person and cherish that person, because without them, you will start to become, you start to, your knowledge won't be increased, okay? But anyways, just a little testimony. So we're gonna be reading off of page 30, or I'm gonna be reading off of page What page is that? 28. Okay, I'm gonna just read a little bit. Let's see. 28. Few scholars write how in early Europe, blacks, especially men, had status and rank amongst upper class Europeans. Women were considered under the law of men. Right. So it says, everything, however, bad and shameful that whites of the colonies said about Negroes can be equaled by what white men said about white women. Right, because back in the medieval times, in the 1300s, 1400s, 1500s, which they call the 10th century, 11th century, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 19th, 20th, all the way, now we're in the 20th century, 2026, all right? Which a century is 100 years, okay? But back in the 14th, 15th medieval periods, it wasn't about color. You know, it wasn't all particularly about color. It was about nobility and your last name, what family you went back to. That's why if you watch like the movie Game of Thrones, they say the House of Lannister, the House of Baratheon, the House of, I'll be forgetting their names, the House of Stark. You know, it's not about race, color like it is today, you know, because that hatred has, because Esau nowadays, you know, his hatred for us is at an all-time high because this is the end of his kingdom. And he knows that spiritually, you know, and the elites, they know that. They know that for sure, that Yahweh Shah is about to come back to destroy them and redeem his people, the 12 tribes of Israel. So that's why they're doing everything they can to stop this truth from getting out to the 12 tribes of Israel. But just 500 years ago, 700 years ago, it wasn't all about race. It was about who you were and the lineage that you came from, all right? And so it says on page 28, everything, however, bad and shameful that whites of the colonies said about Negroes can be equaled by what white men said about white women. Most of the earlier writers, pagan and Christian, so meaning they all agreed, no matter what religion they was, what their belief was, they all agreed on this one thing, were contemptuous of them. An old Latin proverb ran, nux actionis mulier verbere opus habent. A nut, a donkey, and a woman need the whip. Right. Because, you know, women are like children. I just heard a 70-year-old woman at my job talking to her like 70-year-old husband. You know, he was getting a little upset, da 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 da. And she was like, oh, you know, she was buttering him up. Oh, you just so lovely, you just so fine, so handsome. You know, you gonna start making me pout like a little 5-year-old. And for a woman of her age to be that old talking like that, just goes to show you, man, women are the weaker vessel. That's why as a man you have to lead women. All right? And don't be scared to talk to women. Because one thing about women, they scared to talk to you. So when you talk to a woman, you open up to a woman, whether it just comes off, flows like water, or you tell yourself, look, this is what I'm gonna say, and this one I'm gonna tell her. And if it go in a different direction, oh well, but this how I'm coming. You know, this building confidence up into yourself. And you be surprised, man. Look, sometimes you just gotta put yourself in situations, you know. Open up, get outside of your comfort zone. And it don't matter what other men think, because other dudes, look, they betas. We alphas, all right? You got this truth, you alpha, okay? But anyways, it says a nut, a donkey, and a woman need the whip, right? Because women need to be under subjection of a man at all times. It says Aeschylus, Greek dramatist, it's Eschylus, Greek dramatist said, oh God, what a breed thou hast given us in womankind, right? Because they could be your best dream or your worst nightmare, you know? They lovely, they fine, and they all sensual and sexual. And then that's one moment. In the next moment, they a demon, you know? Screaming and fighting and talking this and that and bringing up stuff from the past, like trying to demonize you. You're like, wait a minute, motherfucker, we talking about you, you know? You're trying to switch it up. It says, Menander, which is another famous historian, there is nothing worse in the world than a woman, be she never so good. And that's biblical. This is the greatest evil that Zeus has made, which it wasn't no Zeus, because we know there's only one, the Ancient of Days is the Most High Yahweh. All right. And Seneca, one of the most liberal of Roman writers, said, the leader of all wickedness is women. And that goes back to the scriptures. That's where do you think that they got their philosophy from? The scriptures. That's how you know these are Israelite men writing this stuff. These ain't no Edomites. Edomites will tell you to to let your woman lead the house, or go let your neighbor hit your woman, pop your woman. That's what Edomites be on. Ecclesiastes 25:19. All wickedness is but little. All wickedness is but little to the wickedness of women. So it don't matter what you can think of how to go about doing sin, performing sin. That don't got nothing on what women do on day-to-day basis. Yeah, yeah. And you know, if you ain't got no woman, you gonna find out. All right. If you had a woman, you've been there, done that. You already experienced these females and what they do, what they can do and say and have done. You know this. But if you don't have a woman, or you looking for a woman, you better hope Yahweh Shai send you a Sarah. You know, because look, you get you a part-time demon, a she devil, you're gonna find out how wicked these women get through their conversation, through their actions. And it ain't even gonna be towards you. It could be something my job, you know what I'm saying, I seen my boss and she always be doing this and that. So what I did was I took all her pens off her desk. Yeah, you ain't write nobody up today. And you like, why would you? That's stealing. What do you that's crazy. You could get fired for that. Well, she be talking too much and always walking around with that pen like she finna write some. I'm just giving you examples, you know. So that's what that's going into. It says, let the portion of a sinner fall upon her. Because every woman ain't for the taking, honestly. Every woman out here is not for the taking. Dang, it's already been 12 minutes. Anyways, every woman has not been for the taking. I mean, every woman out here is not for the taking. We got 100 women coming anyways. All right, 1,000 women coming. So every woman that you see, look, you can discern in your spirit whether you want to go for her or no, that's not for me. And that's what all I'm gonna say. If you go for it, be prepared. If you don't, you won't, and you just save yourself. All right. Anyways, back to the book. It says, well, actually, I'm a all right, we're gonna have to make a part 2 of this. Yeah, let me stop this video real quick. Let's see. Matter of fact, I can give me 1 minute. I know what I can do. Just give me 1 minute. Call off the other phone. So just give me 1 minute. All right, I'm back. So where we at? It says, and Salaki on that, you know, I'll take a phone call real quick. It says, okay, here we go. In the matter of religious, now we finna go into Esau and his religion and how he was all about killing anybody, even his own kind, that didn't believe in his false religions. All right. In the matter, and we still on chapter 28, page 28. In the matter of religious prejudice, Christians were thrown to the lions in Rome. It says, when the Christians came to power, they tortured not only non-Christians but other Christians. See that? And that goes to show you Esau ain't based off morals and ethics and laws. All right, he based off power and murder. Okay, that's how Esau is putting his power seat through the sword, even if it means killing his own people. All right. It says when the Christians came to power, they tortured not only non-Christians but other Christians. Henry VIII, head of the Protestant Church of England, sent over 70,000 Catholics and other Christians to the stake. Now let's look that guy up real quick so we can put a name, face, and date on this guy. Here we go. Super Edomite. All right. He remind me of that one fat dude in the Game of Thrones. It says Henry VIII was king of England. All right, yeah, we're gonna have to make a part 2. Let me stop this. Hello. Well, all right, all right. Anyways, so here we go. Which this wasn't nothing. It was just, something pertaining to my job. Hey, man, this ain't scripted. But yeah, this is the guy, so we can clearly see he's an Edomite. Now it says, back to the book, King Henry VIII, head of the Protestant Church of England, sent over 70,000 Catholics and other Christians to the stake. His daughter, Bloody Mary, and that's where they get that term Bloody Mary from, all right? So now you know. You can research that. She was the daughter of this guy on the phone. And why do you think they call her Bloody Mary? We're about to read it. His daughter, Bloody Mary, a Catholic, burnt or beheaded even more Protestants. So he killed 70,000 plus. She killed even more. In Spain, a Jew who had carnal intercourse with a Christian woman, so a black, through though she were a prostitute, was killed. So as a Jew, as a black man, you couldn't even touch these whites. You know what I'm saying? Even if she was a prostitute, they have you killed. And just like in today, what they did to Emmett Till, all right? And she didn't even, it came out. The woman on her deathbed said he didn't even whistle at her. It was just all backed up by racial prejudice. In Avignon, France, under the popes, see how these names keep popping up? The Christians, the Protestants, the popes. It's always killing and sin with them. The penalty for saying was the loss of a leg and a heavy fine for each similar offense. In 8th century Saxony, one who married a woman of a high rank than his own was killed. Under Edward III, an Englishman who so lowered himself as to have intercourse with an Irish woman was guilty of high treason, the penalty for which was to be half hanged, disemboweled, and quartered. English and Irish were then of the same faith, Catholic. So that goes to show you over time, and it's been going on, that Esau, man, his whole mindset is built off blood and violence. With Esau, is either you listen to him or you get killed. That's all it is. So you cannot tell me that Christians, Catholics, Protestants, all these man-made religions made by Caucasians. All right, well, actually, Christianity was made by Israelite, Constantine the Great. All right, but all these religions that have came up over time, made by people that look like him, were built off what? Murder. All right, and power. And we're gonna get that in Psalms chapter 50, verse 16. This is how we know that these are not the true sons of God. It says, Psalms 50 and 16, but unto the wicked God saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes? Right. They trying to do it now because they trying to get their birthright back. But when they was in power, 15, when they came back out of, when the 1,000 years started, I'm sorry. When they came out of 1,000 years of being in darkness, which speaks on in Revelations, Satan, after 1,000 years, he should be loosed a little season. We in that little season now, but within them 1,000 years, or I'm sorry, that thousand year came back when Rodrigo Borgia of Spain came back into power. All right, he came back into his power seat. He was a Catholic. His son was Cesare Borgia, who they used to paint the image of Jesus Christos, Jesus Christ, false God. But around that time, that's when they was building. They was heavy into religion, but they wasn't declaring the law, statutes, commandments of the Most High. That's why I say, but unto the wicked God saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth? Because if he was declaring his statutes, Esau would be living by love thy neighbor, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. You know, he doing everything opposite of that. It says, seeing thou hatest instruction, and casteth my words behind thee. See that? So Esau, you can't tell him how to what to do. And well, in the Bible, it says God made his laws, statutes, commandments, and Esau, I'll kill you for saying that. What you mean, God? I'm God on earth. That's his attitude. And it speaks on that. And I think 2nd Thessalonians. I think it speaks on I'm not gonna go to it. You can look it up, but it speaks on how he acts as he's God. It says, verse 17, seeing thou hatest instruction and cast my words behind thee. See that? So Esau he don't listen to God, man. He do his own thing, and that's what we reading here. It says, on the other hand, persecution as based on the simple difference of color was extremely rare, right? So it wasn't all racist back then, all right? It wasn't all prejudice. It was based off who you were and what family you came from. Whether you were a poor family, of a farmer, your father was a farmer, a merchant, a knight, a nobleman, a sire, a seer, a king, That's how you was giving your lot in the world. And that's how you was giving your respect and your honor in the world, by who you were. It says, even though in parts of Europe, Negroes were proportionally as many as in any of the large northern cities of the United States. Right, so Negroes were heavy. Judah, Benjamin, Levi was heavy populated back in the medieval times. All right. It says even more than your northern cities of the U.S. New York City, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Maryland. So just think all the Jakes there. It was even more back in the medieval ages. It says Lisbon I won't say even more, but they were more populated in those particular cities than they are now. Lisbon in the 18th century had a higher percentage of Negroes than New York. And Lisbon, I think, is in Portugal. Yeah, Lisbon is in Portugal. Lisbon, yeah, it's the capital of Portugal. All right. Now it says, back to the book, prejudice against Negroes and Negroids did not develop, even though the latter came in at times as invaders. See that? So sometimes these Negroes and Negroids, which we know them as the Moors, okay, came in to invade. But then again, it wasn't seen as racial tension. It was all based on religion. It says, in spite of diligent research, I have been able to find only one passage in which invading blacks are called a cursed race. That is in the Chanson of Roland, which will be mentioned later. Now I'm finna read this last paragraph, and then we're gonna get into this. We're gonna pull up the Wikipedia and show you some examples of black nobility, going back to the Middle Ages. Negroes were first worshipped in Greece and Rome, because all your Greek gods, Roman gods, Jupiter, to Greece, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Apollos, Ares, all black. All right, you can research that and find it. All right, It says the rights of white masses bowed down to black deities. See that? The rites of Apollo were founded by Delphos and his Negro mother, Melanus. And that name Melanus goes back to what? Melanin. And the worship of black Isis and Horus was popular in Rome and the Roman colonies as far north as Britain. When this latter evolved into the worship of the Black Madonna and Black Christ, Christian whites also bowed down to them. Now, I'm gonna go to page 31, because this is actually the last paragraph. It says, Shakespeare speaks of the sweet color of the Ethiopians, and in Sonnet 130 rapturely of black skin and wiry hair, Negroes became the favorites of royalty as far north as Russia. Adopted by royalty, they were given royal surnames, married persons of rank, and in some cases became virtual rulers and ancestors of European royalty. Byron satirized this custom in Don Juan, blacks and such like things that gained their bread as favorites and ministers. Right, because we had the most knowledge, okay? And we were, it just goes back to knowledge. You know, what a minister does what? He ministers, okay? He speaks, he teaches, he presents. That's what we're known for. That's what the prologue of Sirach, is all about. Negroes, as was said, were deified in early Greece. They appeared as gods in Greek mythology. The chief title of Zeus, greatest of the Greek gods, was Ethiops. That means black. And from the description of, and when it says Ethiopians, that's just the title that they gave us to describe us as blacks, all right? This is a fine difference between a Hamite and an Israelite. An Ethiopian and a Jew, all right? It says, and from the descriptions of Ethiopians in early Greek writings, there can be no doubt of their identity with living Negroes. Xenophonus of about 550 BC spoke of their black skin and flat noses, and Herodotus 450 BC not only does the same, but adds that the Egyptians were like them. All right? So we're going to stop it right there. Because in that earlier paragraph, it said, Negroes became the favorites of royalty as far north as Russia. Adopted by royalty, they were given royal surnames, married persons of rank, and in some cases became virtual rulers and ancestors of European royalty. And we know that that's factual, because when you go to, I got two articles for you. This is, as you can see, it says, African presence at the Scottish royal court. A number of people of African origin were recorded as servants at the royal court of Scotland during the 16th century, forming a notable African presence at the Royal Scottish Court. The account includes gifts of clothing. Okay, the American scholar Kim F. Hall has characterized these people as dehumanized alien curiosities, which that term just goes into someone of a different country or culture, that is looked upon for their beauty, for their elegancy, for their different colored skin, for they basically like how you say, we say today, oh, I need me a foreign girl, I need me a bad foreign girl, island girl, which when you say Northern Kingdom, that's why it's funny, because Jacob say I need me a foreign girl. You talking about the Northern Kingdom from Colombia, South America. They're not foreign, they your people, but they don't know that. But foreign would be like Italian, Asian, Australian. You want them because it's a different scenery, it's a different type of feeling having one of them, based off how they talk, how they walk, what you're not used to. That's why they called us dehumanized alien curiosities. Because they said, who is these Negroes, and how is they so handsome, tall, fine, strong, and smart? And their histories, roles at court, and their relationships with communities are the subject of continuing research and debate. Okay, so we got that. Now, I want to go here next. It says the term black elite. Black elite refers to elites within black communities that are either political, economical, intellectual, or cultural in nature. These are typically distinct from other national elites in the Western world, such as the United Kingdom's, I always pronounce this word, I gotta go slow, aristocracy, in the United States upper class. Now that we got some examples of, now that we read what that means, let's get some examples of it. Francis Williams, an Afro-Caribbean British scholar and poet, a member of a property owning Afro-Jamaican family, so he was a Benjaminite. He took British citizenship in 1723. The Nigerian British actor David Oyelowo has had a successful career in both Britain and the U.S., where he has also taken citizenship. He was born into a royal family of the Nigerian chieftaincy system. So that man's his family lineage goes back to a royal family. All right. And you know, if he was successful in Britain, then his family goes back to being nobility of Britain. Whether they was knights or, like I said, scholars, you know, next to the king, they had some type of power seat. Here go Eve. You know, they love that beautiful black woman. It says the model, Adwoa Aboa, is a Ghanaian British descendant of the Lothars of Lowther Castle, Earls of Lonsdale. Let's take a quick look at them. See that? They had their own banner. See that? That's how you know it's historical. 1784, becoming extinct in 1802. Then came back 1807. All right. Oh, look at that. They tried to paint him as an Edomite. You know, which she could be an Edomite. You know, she could be an Edomite because, you know, her dad could be white, her mom could be black. You know, because all of Israel, that's spiritual. My people are unto me as a speckled bird, you know. But that ain't no Israelite. I mean, that's an Israelite. That's the Israelite. Look how black he is, all right? Black and calmly. All right. Now let's keep going, though. In the United States, a chief of the Crow Nation, James Beckworth, was the son of an American planter and his enslaved African-American mistress. But these don't really go back to, I don't talk about them going back to European descent, and that's what this lesson is all about. It's good to know these people, Arthur Ashe, you know, Langston Hughes. We've all heard of them before. Let's see some other examples. The trader and community leader Muhammad Shitabe, a chief in the Nigerian chieftaincy system. He was created a bey in the nobility of Ottoman Turkey in the year before his death. See that? And what time was that? Let's look. Damn. Let's see. Ottoman Empire. From the 14th century to the early 20th century, all right? Angelica Larrea, consort to Julio Pinedo, king of the Afro-Bolivians. The Afro-Bolivian claims direct descended from medieval royals of the West and Central African groups. And lastly, the philosopher Kwame Anthony Appiah, a chief in the Ghanaian chieftaincy system, is also connected to the upper classes of the Western world. His direct line of descent can be traced back to Norman monarchs of medieval England. All right, House of Normandy, founded 911, the 9th century. All right. Titles: King of England, Duke of Normandy, Count of Flanders, Count of Rohan. So that's a black man, and we know that the seed spans through the father. What do you think all the men we just, from all them time periods and names we just looked up, who you think they was? Black men. So that does conclude this lesson, but I have to get this scripture just so you can know why they considered us, what did they call us? Delusional. Let's go back to that term. This is why they called us dehumanized alien curiosities. Describes how people from foreign lands, most notably African individuals at early European royal courts, were stripped of their full human identity and treated instead as exotic foreign objects of amusement, spectacle, or novelty. This is why. Let me get it real quick. Ecclesiastes chapter 44, verse 1. Let us now praise famous men and our fathers that begat us. The Lord hath wrought great glory by them through his great power from the beginning. We know at the beginning, Adam, Moses, Noah, just putting some names out there. King David, King Mashah. All right, them great men that was glorified the Lord in his power from the beginning. That's why we have the Old Testament. Such as did bear rule in their kingdoms. And that's what we just read. Because like I said, we've been here in different civilizations from when it all started. So we just read that you had black nobility in the 10, 11, 10, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15th century, Ottoman Empire, Scotland, England, Ireland. All right. Then was men who bear rule in their kingdoms. Men renowned for their power, right? Men known for their power, giving counsel by their understanding and declaring prophecies. Okay. That's what we known for as Israelites. Leaders of the people by their counsels. See that? That's why we got to go up in the ranks of being black nobility in majority white controlled countries because of our knowledge and our wisdom, because it all goes back to the Bible. Remember, we the sons of God. All right. Leaders of the people by their counsels and by their knowledge of learning meet for the people. Right. Because when they ran into us and seen everything we knew, how we could break down how why dirt is brown and why the birds fly as they do together. The birds fly in a V formation, and they put the weaker birds at the back, so that the stronger birds, they flap their wings, and it provides a stronger wind current for the birds in the back to be able to keep up and stay afloat. They looking at us like, did this motherfucker really just break down while birds fly in the sky? Meanwhile, we trying to take arrows and use them for target practice. Wise and eloquent are their instructions. Such as found out musical tunes and recited verses in writing. Beethoven. All right, that's the first thing that come to mind. You can look up different musicians throughout time. Rich men furnished with ability, living peaceably in their habitations. All these were honored in their generations and were the glory of their times. There be of them that have left a name behind them, that their praises might be reported. And I'm going to end it with this. And some there be which have no memorial. So it's some men that we don't even get to know about, which we'll learn all that in the kingdom. Because then the whole book will be opened up towards. The book meaning the world, all right? The knowledge of everything. But it was so many great men back then that it was too many to write down in the book, all right? And if you did get it written down, over time, history does disappear. All right? Thanks to Esau. And some there be which have no memorial, who are perished as though they had never been, and are become as though they had never been born, and their children after them. But these were merciful men, whose righteousness have not been forgotten. So with that, man, definitely wanted to highlight those few points in Nature Knows No Color Line. Until next time, shalom.